Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. It's Wednesday. It's new album and new product review day. And today I've got in the co-captain's chair helping me out on this particular one, Miss Sydney Taylor. What's going on, Sydney? From the Hudson Valley Squares and Metal from the Inside and her new radio gig. How's that going, by the way?
It's going really good. Yeah. I'm on every Friday into Saturday. It's hard to say because it's like Friday night, but also Saturday morning. I do 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So if anybody's up late, you can actually stream the station I work at, which is WMMR in Philly. But yeah, no, it's going great so far. I love it.
Cool. Getting to meet some cool people and spin some good music. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it's all about. I'm really lucky. So
Cool. So we got for you here today the brand new release from Ghost. It's their fifth full-length studio album. It's called Impera. There's the LP, right? LP and the CD. And this is on, what the hell label is this on here?
Loma Vista, I think.
Loma Vista, that's right. Loma Vista. Pretty cool artwork on this, I think. First of all, and maybe you got it better, you can show it a little better, but I'll open up the booklet here. I mean, they spared no expense with this thing, and you got, lyrics and all this really interesting kind of gothic looking artwork, which
they gave us a big one in the LP, which they normally don't do.
Oh yeah, that's wow, that's better than what I got here.
Yeah, but
also, yeah, I like that picture. It's pretty cool. So there you got. I guess this has been touted as what, the return of Papa Emeritus, right? Is that what they're doing? So for all of you folks watching, Papa Emeritus, or whatever the various Papa names and all this kind of stuff. It's basically, this is one guy, right? I mean, this is not, this is one guy who kind of heads up this whole thing. And usually the cast of characters, the musicians, changes from album to album, tour to tour. Really, he's the brainchild. He writes all the songs, does all the vocals. He probably plays a whole shitload of the instruments as well. Who the hell knows? But the guy knows what he's doing. He's got all sorts of guest stars on this album. Specifically, Frederick Ackerson from Opeth plays, I'm assuming, lead guitar on some of these songs. I kind of think I hear him on here. You got Hux Nettermalm on drums. Again, how many songs? I have no idea. Martin Hederos, piano and organ. And then you got various people on choirs and backing vocals and stuff like that, and along with a group of nameless ghouls. And that's who these musicians are. Maybe someday, 5 or 10 years from now, we'll get someone that'll come out and say, yes, these are all the people that actually play with Ghost over the years. And I think we're going to be shocked at who some of these names are. Or maybe we won't.
I always joke, I'm like, I would be so frustrated if I was in this band and I couldn't tell anybody that I was writing and playing on these songs. Like, I would be like, oh, I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, the only guy we know for sure is Tobias Forge, right? He's the guy who plays Papa Emeritus and all these other characters. But everybody else has been kept under secret. And I guarantee you, at some point in time, we are going to find out that there were some major people playing in this band, either on the records or on tour.
Right.
And then we'll be like, oh, how cool is that, right? But for now, it's just a bunch of faceless, nameless ghouls. So that's all we got. So as for the album, we got about how many tracks we got in here? About a dozen tracks. It's about 45 minutes, which is interesting because when I first got this and I looked at like all the songs, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really long album, but it's really not, and it goes by really quick. And they've released a couple of songs as singles. So far we've got Hunter's Moon, Call Me a Little Sunshine, and 20s.
Yes.
Good songs, right? I mean,
yeah, they're all pretty solid, and they all kind of have like the first two. I would say what's interesting about this, the more that you listen to this album too, which we're going to get into, but those three songs are probably most similar to what I think people expect most from Ghost.
Yeah.
I did a review for my radio station as well, and I mentioned that 20s is probably most similar to like Mummy Dust from the 2015 record. So those are like the three songs that you listen to them and you're like, oh, okay, this totally sounds like Ghost. And then there are a couple on here that are definitely a little bit closer to the, prequel and everything. And so it's an interesting way that they kind of formatted it and released them like strategically. So
yeah, I think the tracking of the album is pretty ingenious, I think, because it like, and I gotta say, I can't get enough of Spillways.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Why have they not released that as a single? That is the catchiest song I've heard all year here in 2022. I know we're only 3 months in, but good God, I mean, that's like the catchiest song this band has ever done.
Well,
It's
they
perfect.
did the night that the album was released, they did like a live stream thing, which I think it was obviously pre-recorded. It wasn't actually like live when they streamed it, but they did like 4 songs and like the way that it's recorded, it looks like it's like vintage almost, like it's like on film, like really shitty film. And they did 4 songs. So they did the 2 biggest singles. They did Call Me a Little Sunshine, they did Hunter's Moon, and then they did Kaiserion, and then they did Spillways. So I think it might be coming as a single.
It should.
Just because they did it, but I think it's by far. I also like Griftwood. That's another one that it's like one of my favorites. That's got that melodic signature, like catchy riff, but Spillways is great.
It's really good. I mean, it's uncanny how catchy it is. And yeah, I mean, let's get it out there right now. This is not a metal album. I don't think it's not a heavy metal album. Is it a great hook laden hard rock album? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But you know, I mean, for me, I don't know if this band has really been a metal band since their first album. A lot of people like to classify them as a metal band because of the image and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, this is just really, you know, hard rock songs with pop hooks all over the place. And yeah, his vocals sound a little bit like Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult. But you know what? I think that whole Blue Oyster Cult comparison with this album is kind of like going by the wayside. I don't really hear a lot of that anymore, other than some vocal references here and there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they do have some songs that are heavier than others. Like 20s on this album is definitely a little bit heavier. Like that would probably be what I would think is the closest to a heavy metal song. I think if you want to look at it in like terms of bands that are big mainstream wise in rock right now, they would be closer to a heavy metal band. But I'm talking about bands like that are kind of really much bigger in the, like I'm thinking like the Greta Van Fleets, the Dirty Honeys, like those kinds of bands that are like newer but bigger, you know, less so than like heavy metal bands maybe you and I would know that aren't like on the charts or an active rock radio or anything. But they're definitely, they're just melodic enough where I wouldn't quite say that they're heavy metal, but they have the glam metal energy to them, I think, a little bit.
Oh, especially on this album. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because like I'll throw out another band that's fairly popular, like Alter Bridge, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Alter Bridge are very rarely called a metal band, but I think Alter Bridge are infinitely heavier than these guys. Yeah. Maybe it's because there's so much emphasis on big guitar riffs and things like that. But yeah, I really like your comparison to like 80s glam metal, because there is a very strong kind of playful, fun, hooky, melodic nature to a lot of these songs that if this album was released in 1986 or 87 or 88, man, would take over the world, I think.
There's the one song that automatically that I felt that way about instantly was Watcher in the Sky.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I heard that riff and it took somebody on my Twitter mentioning 2 guitar players that I think it encapsulates very well. But the second I heard the opening riff, I was like, oh my God, this is from like this could have been taken out of like the early to mid 80s and like just could fit alongside any riff from that time. And one of my followers had mentioned it's like a cross between like Randy Rhoads and Zakk Wylde. And it really is. Like I listened to that opening riff and it totally, once somebody said that, was Randy Rhoads inspired to me. Like that riff could have been on Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman. So that one immediately was like, this could be on an 80s album.
Yeah. And I gotta say, and I didn't hear it until today. I listened to this twice today, and you know, we had this little discussion going on Facebook over the last couple of days, and Louis Nasser mentioned that he hears a little bit of Macaulay Schenker Group in some of these songs. And a lot of people are like, oh, no way, you know, there's no MSG on here. I don't hear Schenker anything going on here. And I was like, and I saw that comment and I was like, oh, interesting, you know. And then today I listened to, like I said, I listened to this album 2 more times today, and I'm like, wait a second. I think I know what he's talking about here. And it's not like the guitarist sounds like Schenker. It's not like the vocals sound like Robin McAuley, but there is a kind of like those Macaulay Schenker albums to me are not really hair metal albums like everybody, like that everybody lumps everything in from that decade. But there's a real accessible commercialness to their brand of hard rock that they did on those couple albums that was very different from the German heavy rock that he was doing with Graham Bonnet or Gary Barden coming before it. And there's a pop sensibility on those albums that I always really liked.
Yeah.
Some people don't. So the real hardcore Schenker fans are, they don't like those albums because they're too poppy. But I kind of thought they did that style really, really well. There is a very similar style of heavy rock on this album where I think they do very similar things. Not that any of these songs sound like Perfect Timing or any of those Macaulay Schenker group albums, but I can totally now hear what Lewis was getting at. There is a way they play around with the vocal harmonies, and some of these melodies they just like stick into you and they don't let go. And I think more so than it sounding like it reminds me of those albums too. And that's not a bad thing because I think those albums are pretty damn good. So Lewis, if you're watching, I hear you, my friend. I totally hear you now. I get it.
I mean, those Macaulay Schenker group albums are some of personally my favorites that Michael Schenker did solo, which I know is kind of a controversial statement, but I'm obviously more into the melodic stuff. But at first I didn't hear it either, and but I can totally see you could put Save Yourself is probably my favorite album from that time period. You could, if you finagled it a little bit and made it ghostified, you could put probably Save Yourself on this album, and it would probably fit. The title track of that would fit alongside this. So I definitely know what he means. I don't see it in every track.
No, not in every track. A couple of
but there's definitely a couple where I'm it could fit alongside for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Your favorite songs on here?
So definitely Spillways. That one, the second I heard it, I was like, oh shit, we're getting right back into the the ghost I really love. Griftwood is probably my favorite on this.
Griftwood is great.
Super catchy, super, just really big chorus, really catchy. I love Darkness at the Heart of My Love is an interesting track, kind of more of an epic for this album, longer than some of the other songs. Ballad. Lyrics are kind of, very mysterious, very, very ghost-esque. I do like Call Me Little Sunshine a lot. When that song came out, I was like, it's definitely a good sign for what the album would soon become. I mean, there's really not, I'm not super in love with 20s. It's not my all-time favorite on the album. I think it's a good song. I like the humor bits to it, how he rhymes moolah with hoo-has and darula. It's where are you coming up with this? It's not one of my all-time favorites, but it's definitely, like I said, reminiscent of some of the earlier stuff that they did, which I think is a nice way to appease both kind of, the newer fans who maybe are more into the melodic stuff that they've done in recent years, and also trying to keep a hold of some of the people who were there in the beginning. But I don't even have one song that I'm like, ooh, I don't like it.
No, I don't either. I think it's all pretty damn good. I also like Respite on the Spittle Fields. Is that how it's pronounced? That's kind of cool too, because he does little these little kind of whispery, kind of spitty vocals like he did on the first couple albums on there, which I think is a nice little, again, maybe threw that in there just to keep everybody happy for who's been with them since the beginning. So that's pretty cool too. But yeah, it's not a dark evil album like some of the early ones. It's definitely upbeat and fun. And I think it just gets better with each listen. I have at least 5 or 6 tracks on here that I would really love a lot, and the rest of it I really like a lot. So Cassarion, Spillways, Watcher in the Sky is terrific. Call Me Little Sunshine. Hunter's Moon is great too. I don't know. I dig it all. Griftwood is great. It's all really, really good. I would probably, if I had to rate this, which I generally do, God, it's either a 4 or a 4.5 out of 5 star for me. Easy.
Yeah,
and you have to wonder. Granted, it's only just been out not even 2 weeks, but you have to wonder over time how this album is going to kind of rate when you look at the whole rest of the catalog, right? Because I've been saying for years that Meliora from 2015 was my favorite Ghost album, and that probably might still be the case today, but I don't know. This is damn good.
It's pretty good. I mean, also, I was thinking about it today when I was looking at the tracks. You know, they always kind of theme, or especially with the last album, they were kind of really theming. Like the last record was about the plague. This is more of like focused on like the rise and fall of empires, which I think is so interesting that he's managed to like predict the future with both of these albums. But like he adds a couple instrumentals in every album, and I think that this was almost, although it's definitely, I guess you could say it's maybe a concept record because of what it's themed about. Every song was themed around this rise and fall of empires, but the way that it flows, and like Imperium is a really atmospheric you know, instrumental that opens up the record. You have Dominion, then you have Bite of Passage. It's all like these little vignettes and really kind of makes each song flow into one another, which I think is really interesting that he can do that. They're able to do that, and it's not, you know, taking away from the album, or, you know, people aren't, because it's just so on par for Ghost. And for me, I mean, I really hopped on the Ghost bandwagon when the last record came out. I love Dance, you know, Macabre and Rats, and I mean, I loved that album. That was kind of when I really was like, ooh, I should really start paying attention to this Ghost band. It was like when that album came out. I remember my dad had shown me made me listen to some of the songs, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is right up my alley. So I mean, I like the doom stuff that they did in the beginning, but personally, I kind of hopped on the bandwagon when they were already kind of headfirst into this melodic style. You know, we kind of saw that too when you look back, foreshadowing with Square Hammer is when they really were like, okay, we're kind of getting into this style. But I don't know, I was not expecting this to take the place of the last album being my favorite. But I don't know, like it makes me worried, because I'm like, how are guys gonna be able to live up to this on the the next one? Like, you know, how many albums can they consistently put out that are great? You know, like every band kind of reaches the pinnacle, and I hope that they stay there for a long time. But it's like, oh gosh, this set such like a dangerously high precedent for whatever they do next.
I mean, that's true, because this is easily one of their best, if not their best.
Yeah.
But you know, they've been taking, they took 4 years on this, right? So 3 years before the last one, 2 years, 3 years. So they generally don't pump them out too quick. Although I guess nowadays most, you know, semi-big bands are giving you a new release every 2-3 years or so. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, for now, it's damn good. We'll be enjoying this one for a while. We'll see. It may be that this might be looked at years from now as one of the shining diamonds in their catalog, but I don't know. We'll see.
And I have to say really quick too, just because you know, I'm sure that a lot of the people watching this are Ghost fans, but I'm sure there are a couple, you know, more people on this channel that might be watching this who are just wanting to see what the album's about. But if you aren't necessarily a big Ghost fan, I'm sure Pete can attest to this too, I would just highly recommend just taking a listen to this, you know, putting aside any preconceived notions of, you know, too poppy or whatever, and just take a second to put away that bias and just listen to each song for what it is. You know, I think that this band has such a, we talked about it on the Hudson Valley Squares, it has such a connotation of like either love it or you hate it, or they got the metal imagery, but they're not metal. And, you know, and I think it's easy sometimes to kind of have a preconceived notion and like cast it aside immediately. But I think, you know, this band is definitely one of those bands that it's bringing in like people in my generation into this scene, which I think is really important. You know, they're going to be around for a long time, I hope. So if you don't necessarily love Ghost, I think that you should still maybe buy a copy, check it out. I mean,
can't hurt to give it a shot, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So yeah, I mean, they're kind of a polarizing band to some, and I get it, right? And you know, there's also that thing too that some some hard rock and metal fans, they don't like when their favorite band gets too big, right? They like them when they stay in sort of the underground, right? And don't change, stay just as you are. But
Right.
they have every right to want to sell records and fill big arenas and all that kind of stuff and be played on the radio. It's what it's all about. But I think, the one thing I will say, yeah, this doesn't sound much like their first album, but they really moved on from that early style fairly
Right.
quickly. So they've been building to this. I mean, all their albums are very much jam-packed with hooks and potential hit singles and catchy stuff and rocking stuff. I mean, there's rocking stuff on here too. So I don't know. It's a fun album. I dig it.
It was a gradual stepping stone. This was eventually what was coming. So
It was. Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
good combination of everything that they've done so far, I think.
Yep, I agree. So there you have it, everybody. Impera from Ghost, brand new. Check it out. If you've already heard it, please put some comments down below. Let us know what you think of the album. If you haven't heard it, go out and listen to it. Come back and let us know what you think. And hopefully you dig it as much as we are. So thanks for Sydney for jumping on and helping out with this review. You want to plug anything going on your end?
Yeah, so I actually, it's funny because I taken a little bit of a step back, and I feel like I do this a lot, but I got in this job a couple months ago, and I've been finding my footing there. But I finally have some cool interviews that I'm getting done for the podcast that are hopefully going up soon. I had LaJawn Witherspoon from Seven Dust recently on for a chat, which is going to be up hopefully this Friday. I have a chat scheduled with Aldo Nova this Friday, which is going to be fun. That should be coming the next week. And some others after that. So keep an eye on Metal from the Inside. There's stuff coming, I promise. And like I said at the beginning of this, I'm on 93.3 WMMR in Philly, which is a great active rock station. We play Ghost, the newest stuff from Ghost. So if you are loving this album, I recommend that you listen. And I'm on every Friday and a Saturday, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. You can stream online if you're not in the area. So I have some listeners that, it's funny, Pete, I have people who will text into the station and tell me that they're Sea of Tranquility listeners or watchers and are listening to the station. So I appreciate anybody that's done that. So that's where you can find me.
That's very cool. Yeah, very cool. Well, keep doing it, everybody. Come on, get her. Lots of people listening. So that's what we like to hear. So very cool. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all together, all the damn time. For Sydney Taylor, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.